Hello there, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School X's and O's show / podcast. Honored to be here on this Wednesday night. We got a little bit of a break here between games, one of the longer ones of the season. After a loss to Atlanta last night, next game the Knicks will play will be on, I believe, Friday night against Orlando. I am joined by the one and only Detail Junkie, defender of Julius, doctor of jump shots, the great DJ Zullo. What's going on, DJ?
What's up, man? I'm good. It's been I just finished the rewatch of the Atlanta game. There will be a thread, by the way, for all you guys tomorrow. So I'll get that out for you guys probably by noon tomorrow Eastern time. But I finished the game last night, the first watch, feeling like, all right, another gritty effort. Didn't have enough to pull it out, and then I finished the rewatch. It was so disgusted with the fourth quarter that I'm now a little cranky about how that game went down. So that's how I'm feeling as we hit start on this X's and O's. Though I'm always obviously overjoyed to be with you, but I'm a little annoyed at the basketball team right now over a fourth quarter that I thought was unnecessarily poor on the offensive end. But we will, I'm sure, dive into all that. But before we do, I need to ask you, how are you things with you? Everything on your end okay? How you feeling?
Everything's all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got a little tooth issue that we went over before, but I'm okay. Andrew was very concerned. He was a little too concerned. I'm really fine. It's all medical.
You're grimacing.
It's all medical. I have an upper body injury.
Listen, I lost Julius Randle in January. I lost OG Anunoby in January. Isaiah Hartenstein went down. Thought we might lose Jalen Brunson forever on Sunday. I don't need to lose you too, Benjy. Okay.
If someone sat out a game because of a toothache, I wonder how that would go over with the Tibbs.
With Tibbs, he would just yank it out. You know, like that would be the solution there.
Yeah. I can't wait to. I don't know. I guess you'll expound on what you mean later, because I'm curious to hear what you saw in that fourth quarter, although I'm sure it'll come out in the thread as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so hopefully there's some people here with us that are asking some questions. Let's hit it, Andrew, shall we? Who's out there who's asking things?
So I want to get you guys started while people are still rolling in.
Okay, what's up?
So my question, obviously offense has been more difficult to manufacture in the absences of some of their creators. So my question to both of you, I've noticed, whether it be from 99th Basketball or from either of your threads, is the way they're trying to manufacture offenses with some very clever off-ball sets. So my question is, like, did I just miss that they were also doing this when they had Brunson and Randle together and operating at their full powers, when the old version of this roster was there? Were they running these sets? Or is this, dare I say it, some creativity from said head coach, that because he knows there's less offensive initiators, that this is now how he's trying to boost the offense?
Yeah, I mean, so I think I do think it's changed a lot. I think what we're seeing is less pick and roll and more DHO centered offense. That's kind of like the general shift that's taken place. And so you'll see a ton of just kind of delay type sets, 5-out type looks. The 5-man is almost always the outlet on the weak side if there's something being run on the strong side, so that you can pivot into DHOs. They're just trying to clear the floor, and because of the lack of ball handlers, they are trying to minimize the kind of standard pick and roll attack that I would say defines their offense on a normal night when they have their stars, and they have tried to generate more movement, manufacture some advantage creation through those types of sets now that those guys are out. And I think they've had some success. And I actually think against Atlanta, and, you know, DJ, maybe we'll talk now and about what thought about the fourth quarter and if that changed, but certainly in the first half as a whole, generated a ton of good looks out of all those types of plays, and they missed them all. TiVo had a serious regression game, which is probably bound to happen, which obviously hurt a lot. But But I think I actually do give Tibbs a lot of credit for the ingenuity here in changing the way the offense looks. And I hope that some of it translates to when the Stars get back, because I think a lot of it could be really helpful, especially when late game situation, good defenses, playoff situations where you need to kind of manufacture something. I think these types of looks and trusting Hartenstein a bit more with the ball and all that might be helpful.
Yeah, and the other thing it does, it builds in plan B, plan C out of these sets. So whereas if you have your stars and you're running, Jalen's you run him pick and roll with Jalen Brunson, he's going to get a good look, whether it's for himself or he's going to figure out a way to get the ball to the second side, and the Knicks are going to play out of that and they're going to get good offense out of that action. Whereas now, if the first action is not going to bear fruit, as you mentioned, they're going to have the center come up and that ball's going to the weak side, and then there's plenty of things they can play out of that. So they're building in more optionality into their offense, which is a really good thing. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. In that first quarter, I mean, DiVincenzo must have had 4 or 5 like great looks. A couple went in and out. I mean, it was just one of those nights in the first quarter where just everything was rimming out. I thought the offense was really strong. Like, I felt pretty good, even though they were down, I think 20 because they took a 3 off the board going into the second quarter, but I felt really good at where they were. And it kind of, they played well, I thought, in the second and third. And then in the fourth quarter, I thought the big adjustment Atlanta made was, the Knicks were really getting good stuff out of McBride running his pick and roll stuff. And the ghost screening with Bogey was, I thought, like a really strong option for them. But Atlanta just decided that we're going to switch every one of those. They communicated the switch early, so there was no switch pocket. There was no, Boyan flaring out and just having enough room to get off a look. They were really on point. And once that switch happened, it's Hunter on McBride, and it really devolved into McBride trying to make something against a really strong defender who's big and long and rangy, and the Knicks just really couldn't generate anything in that fourth quarter. So they really took away that option, but there is more creativity with this offense in general. And I would echo your sentiment that when Randall comes back, when Anunoby comes back, and of course, when Jalen gets back here, I think they need to keep some of this in there because it just makes them harder to guard. I mean, with the Bojanovic, I mean, there's just a lot of options with him. And I just feel like if you keep 10% of it, 15% of it, I think it's a positive thing. Despite, them struggling in the fourth quarter, I thought in the first quarter and then in spurts in that game last night, thought they played really strong offensive basketball. It was when Atlanta adjusted, the Knicks couldn't adjust back.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And I would even say this is obviously with Brunson off the floor. Even when Brunson's on the floor, you've seen more of this type of stuff since Julius and OG have gone out. And with Brunson also, they've injected a lot of off-ball movement for Jalen.
Yeah,
to come get the ball. Floppy, you got Chicago's flares, various things where at least he's getting a step before he touches it so that not every possession requires him beating his guy off the dribble from scratch. And I think that's great. At times, I think it actually makes him work harder because it takes a lot of energy to run around all the way down the court and come all the way back. And he's already doing so much. But you can imagine a scenario where you have Julius and you have OG and you can go to some of that stuff when he doesn't have to actually generate every possession. That could be really helpful. So, I that's the silver lining. If you ever get the health, I think the additions of this kind of stuff could be really helpful to their offense, regardless of who's in the lineup. And that's before you get to the fact that Deuce has had like a moment here and gained a ton of confidence. DiVincenzo has gained a whole new level of confidence, like in terms of what he can do in his shooting. We've gotten Josh Hart on track with his shot. Precious, you got something. He's a rotation player at the very least. And a great depth piece, and you've seen what he can do. So, like, there are silver linings here, both from a strategic perspective, from a personnel perspective, even though this has been an awful grind through the month of February and now into March, and it's been tough to watch at times. This team struggled to score and defend as well. But I think they could come out the better for it if they can hang in and hang on and eke out a couple more wins until the cavalry comes back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really strong way of looking at it. The other side of the coin is, you look at the standings, and it seems like every game they're dropping just a little bit farther back, or it's getting a little bit tighter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, when I tweeted today that, I feel like the front office is staring at a failure here in terms of getting another ball handler that you could really rely on at the trade deadline, because you look at Burks, I think there is, at best, there is room for a concern. At worst, you wonder if he's got it right now. And I think and not just I think he could shoot. I think he's always going to shoot the ball. He's going to make plays for himself. I feel like there is just not enough there as a creator playmaker right now. Now look, that's all going to change when Julius is here, and even OG, and obviously Jalen. You're not going to need him to sort of be the fulcrum of an offense right now. Everyone is overextended. I mean, in your grades, you mentioned it. Everyone is overextended right now, or I think it was DiVincenzo you were specifically referring to, but it just feels like the whole team is right now a little bit overextended. So everyone's going to kind of fall back into place. I get that, but every win here, every loss is so important. And so when I'm watching that fourth quarter, and I'm like, all right, how are they getting a good look? And it just wasn't happening. There was a stretch there where they went about 5-6 minutes in a game. They scored 3 points. They were 1 of 6. They just weren't, and they weren't getting anything towards the basket. I mentioned the switching that the Hawks were doing. They had no worries about, putting a wing on McBride, obviously. And I don't think Deuce handled it great. But it's really not his role to sort of, you shouldn't expect him to be the guy to generate offense for you. I think he can, if he's running a standard pick and roll, he's gotten good enough to where he's a pull-up threat now, and he can make a couple of those passes now. He can snake a little bit. Obviously the floater and the finishing is still a work in progress, but I feel like he's made big strides as just a pick and roll operator. But when they're switching and then not allowing him to use the screen, it makes it a little bit tougher. So I'm a little down right now on where they are without Jalen. I know we're all like overextended. I know they're still playing really hard, and they're doing everything they can on the effort side of things, but it just feels like the front office probably could have done a little bit better job of giving this team a little bit, because you had the injuries. You knew the injuries were there. And you knew that Jalen is not going to play every single game. You know, there was a possibility that he can get hurt. So I think they could have done a better job.
And you knew what you traded out. You traded out 2 of your ball handlers, your second and third, right? I mean, Quickly and RJ were their second and third most frequent pick and roll ball handlers, and you moved off. So like, Alec Burks isn't the answer in that sense. And I mean, I talked about the trade with John on his pod, but like, Alec Burks, when we liked him, when he was doing good things, was when he was playing off of Rose Quickly. Like, that's when he was at his best with the Knicks. When he was at his worst with the Knicks, he was starting point guard. And I'm just surprised that they went this direction, although I understand it from a cap perspective. And I understand the need to move from Fournier to Bogdanovich. I get it. I do believe there was, and I think the reporting supports this, that there was some part of this trade that was intended to get us through this stretch of basketball. And
how's that working out right now?
And I don't think they got the right guys to do that. And that's, I mean, I don't think you could have expected Burks to play this badly, but he's been bad. And yeah, you talked about Bogey. They took away 3. They didn't take away 3. He stepped on the freaking sideline. Because he's making seriously, like, why he's making a lot of mistakes that I understand he's slow to the ball. I understand he's a little soft with the ball. He's going to get stripped a lot. When there's a long rebound, he's not going to get there first. Like, that stuff we knew. Stepping on the line, moving screens, like, he's got to cut it out. He's got to
fouling 3-pointers,
fouling 3-point shooters. Yeah, he's got to cut out the mental mistakes. Because there are already limitations there, right? So you can't add to them. And then you got to make shots, which he's sort of done and sort of not at times.
It's been spotty, yeah.
Weirdly airballing open ones.
Yeah, what's going on there? I mean, we had one last night again. But it's the thing that's really, the athleticism deficiencies were obviously, like, you watch him play once, you'd see that. The thing that is standing out, and it's happened several times, where he'll drive and he's either falling down or he's complaining, and then he's already like going to struggle to get back. And it's happened twice in the Atlanta game where he just didn't get back in time, and the Knicks were cross matched. It was obviously an odd man advantage, and the Hawks scored out of it. Then you mentioned the loose ball stuff. I mean, that there's a couple of plays where he just is like, is he stuck in mud? Is he trying? I mean, maybe it's like one of those things where you're seeing Josh Hart and DiVincenzo and OG when he's healthy and McBride get to all these loose balls. So it stands out when a guy just doesn't have the step to do it. But it does matter. And the Knicks rebounding has been really bad with him on the floor, and it's obviously a small sample size. So,
he gets beat to rebounds a lot.
He does.
So yeah, they're going to need more from him. They're going to need more from Alec. I do wonder, once the cavalry does come back, like to the extent to which both those guys get squeezed for minutes. I think right now Deuce is outplaying Burks, that's for sure. So like, where does Tibbs go? That'd be interesting. But in the meantime, and that's where we are, we're in this meantime period. They really need to play better. They just need to play better. All right, I think with that, we can pivot into some questions. Kevin Danishevsky is first. What's up, KD? Hey, all. What do you see as Deuce's ceiling in the league? Do you think there's any chance there's a Kyle Lowry type leap he can make over the coming years? DJ.
All right. Well, it's funny, on the watch party yesterday, because we were talking about Deuce, and I said, is there a ceiling of Miami Kyle Lowry, like maybe like 80% of what he was towards the end of his career, where good shooter, stout defender, can probably guard up a little bit, gonna grind in the paint, box out, do the dirty work. I see a little bit of the late career Lowry in McBride. Maybe not a guy you're comfortable starting and playing 35 minutes, but 20 minutes a night. Just a really annoying guy to play against. Like I see some shades. Obviously, Pete Kyle Lowry was a Hall of Famer, so we're not. I do not think Deuce has that ceiling in him. But if you're going to say a guy that could start a few games for you and develops enough as a playmaker to where you could run a functional pick and roll, and the shooting, I'm really confident he's just going to be a good shooter on volume in this league. I can see, a late career Kyle Lowry, maybe not quite to that level, but close enough facsimile to that guy.
Yeah, I mean, the comp I always made, and it wasn't just because they're both West Virginia guards, but like Javon Carter was always the first guy that came to mind. Now, because Javon Carter made himself into a very good shooter and was always an extremely pesky good on-ball defender. A little undersized, not really a traditional point guard. So he's almost like an undersized wing, but can do a lot of really good things, and second side, whatever. I know he hasn't had a very good year this year, Javon, but he's had very good years in the past. I think what I'm seeing now from Deuce on the ball handling side of things, I may elevate him above that type of player. I'm struggling to find a very good comp at the moment, but I do think the ceiling at least has risen above Javon Carter. Mm-hmm. I don't think the ceiling is Kyle Lowry. You think of Pat Bev, as a similar type of like undersized wing, essentially, who can run a pick and roll, but guards the hell out of the ball. I don't, it's that archetype, right? I guess
it's Marcus Smart, like a little level 2.
I think
Marcus is probably a better passer.
I think Marcus Smart guards up, as an like extremely well in a way that I haven't seen from Deuce yet. Not to say he couldn't or can't, but like Marcus Smart has a frame on him also that's just different.
That's true.
I think that's a bit lofty for me, but not crazy. So like that's I think what we're looking at, and that's where I see him. But that's not to say, look, player development is unpredictable. Guys can rise above where you think they're going to be. It's happened on this team several times already this season. I didn't think Dante DiVincenzo could be one of the best high volume 3-point shooters in the league. Julius Randle, their story, it's hard to predict. And I'm not going to put any ceiling. I'm not going to actually put a ceiling on him, and we're going to watch and see. But that's kind of where I see him, Kev.
Do you see? You've aptly called him a wing, not a point guard. It's a completely fair, reasonable description of where he is now, do you think he could be your like a viable quality backup rotation point guard in the NBA?
It would depend on context. Not if
Mhm.
you're like a he's not running a second unit the way like Chris Paul runs Golden State, obviously, or the way even like a Tyus Jones used to run Memphis. Like that's never you're never gonna run your second unit around Deuce McBride pick and rolls. I don't see. Now you may have a big you can play through and whatever, if you played with like a Kelly Olynyk on the second unit, that's the kind of situation I think you'd have to be in to be like a real point guard. I guess kind of the way he is now, where he's playing next to Burks and he's playing with Hartenstein, whatever, where he doesn't have to run every pick and roll. I don't know. Do you feel differently?
No, I think I'm in lockstep with where you are. I just, you mentioned the development part, and it's the mental side of things. He just seems like a really good bet to get better year after year. So if you factor that in, I know that's probably us reading a little, or me reading a little bit too much into that side of things, but you know, there's certain guys you just don't want to bet against in terms of continually getting better. And there's going to be athletic limitations, size limitations. That's going to put a ceiling on where he is, but he's gotten much better to me. Like where he is as a ball handler passer, like I didn't necessarily think he had that in him even like a year ago. So
yeah, we've seen leaps already this season. Like passes he's seeing now that he didn't see early, cross court flings, keeping his head up better. Like there's still these possessions where it's just kind of dribble into the corner, dribble back up, where it just takes 15 seconds for them to run anything because he doesn't. And it's funny, there are actually plays where the Knicks will run a set like a flare for Bogey, where the pass needs to go over the top to kind of initiate the action. And there's one example I know Bogey was kind of looking for, it never came, and he was a little frustrated. There was a curl play for Bogey that they ran that I just thought he should have thrown the curl just to get things flowing, and he hesitated and he ended up dribbling. Like he just needs to get off the ball quicker. But he is seeing passes at a higher level now for sure. You're seeing that, and that's huge. And so he found Precious on a couple where Precious was able to drive a closeout. Like it's getting better. You know, we saw this with Quickly, like through the years, where guys, as they get reps, develop as passers, pick and roll passers. The more you run, the more you see defenses and how they cover them, the better you get. So this has been an amazing opportunity for him to get the reps, and he's certainly taking advantage of it.
Yep.
What do we got next, Andrew?
Robert Cross, our guy. Thank you so much, sir.
This is directed to me, so I'll take it.
Oh,
Robert,
go ahead.
Regretfully. Please. Who knows where this could go? This is for cerebral big threat Benjamin, aka Tibbs Jr. And the reason I feel like, Robert, you attack me for being pro Tibbs, anti Tibbs.
This is a full compliment. What do you mean?
Like the attacks are
cerebral.
Tibbs
nice. Jr.
That was nice. Tibbs Jr. Could go either way. The reason we have Alex Burks. Oh, we're even calling him Alex. Sorry, I'm going to start the question again because this is for cerebral big bet, not just because I want to call myself cerebral again. You know what? I'm going to start somewhere else. And the reason we have Alex Burks here again, can you explain what drop is? Thanks. Oh, you're saying I'm the reason that Alex Burks is here again.
Okay. Now it makes sense.
It is a dream come true, but sometimes dreams end badly.
Yep.
And they turn to nightmares. And it's really hard. Can I explain what drop is? Gladly. Drop defense is when the person guarding the screener sits in the lane to some extent, and there's deep drops and there's shallow drops, but drops off of the screener to contain the ball and protect the rim. That is what drop defense is, Robert, and that is what you'll see Mitchell Robinson, especially for this team, play almost exclusively.
Yep.
And then Hartenstein,
he's really good at it.
And he's very good at it. Hartenstein a lot of the time will be in a drop. So anytime you see Hartenstein stay back when his man goes to screen, that is a drop.
Yep.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, and you're taking away, obviously you're taking away the rim. You're also going to probably rely more on your point of attack defender getting over the top of the screen and really fighting over rear contesting. That's a big deal in when you're in drop. And then it's also probably limiting some of the weak side help that's going to be necessary if you're going to play more of an aggressive style pick and roll defense, hard hedging or blitzing, you're really going to require your help side defenders to come in, and then you're giving up, you're in rotation. So I think drop is obviously, and it's almost gotten a cliche where it's a safer choice, and it probably is in terms of like what you're giving up, what you're taking away. I think you go in knowing what your limitations are and what you're going to be good at in that defense. Now, to Tip's credit, because it became a thing where it's all he does is play drop. He's been very much more willing this year, especially to vary it up. With Sims, he's almost never in drop. He's always more at the level. You mentioned Hartenstein. Achua, when he's played the 5, has been more at the level. I feel like he's been really more creative and using his centers in a more diverse style. And that's obviously been more apparent since Mitch went down, who, as you mentioned, is more going to be 90% in drop. Although against Cleveland last year, he was more at the level in the playoffs and did a good job. He and Grimes,
that I think had more to do with the surrounding personnel and where they wanted to filter the ball, right? Because and it's actually crazy because you saw it again in the last matchup. We blitz the ball, the other big leaves Mobley or leaves Allen, whichever one's screening, and then is help, and then you leave a Coro on whatever side he's on to help behind. So the ability to do that allows you to get aggressive without the downsides that you normally have in being aggressive, right?
Yeah, and I do think that we talk about silver linings. I think it's been good that there's been more diversity in that world. I think Sims has been. I mean, he came on the court last night, and it just changed his athleticism, his motion, his ability to get in and out of a defensive stance. Like, he just changes the complexion of the game just by his ability to move at his size. And they've really tapped into his ability to just be really aggressive in these pick and roll sets, getting really high at the level, not quite blitzing, but he's usually in sort of a hedge, and he's able to recover. Just have been a fantastic little run here for Sims as a defender. Even and then offensively, I feel like there's been a little more with him as a passer, DHO hub. That's been nice to see. But
agreed. I think he needs to look at the basket more often with his athleticism. I think he too often kicks out, and I also think you're 100% right. And I love where his role now, where he's off the bench and as a spark plug. But then at times he just seems so small, like against Clint Capella, for example, where like it just. And look, that's it. He's 6'8", 6'9". He's just not whatever he is. He's not Hartenstein. He's not Mitch. And size at that position is really important. And so it's, when he's playing 10 to 20 minutes or whatever, I think it's, and Hartenstein's limitation right now is really hurting. It's just, I think it's gone underscored when we talk about the injuries, is like the defense was the best in the league, and obviously OG was a huge part of that, but so was Isaiah Hartenstein. And like he was flying around blocking shots recklessly at times, and he can't do that now. It's just obvious. He's not the same guy. And that is hurting. I don't know, we got off track, but that's the answer, Robert. I hope that's helpful. And by the way, I should add that like this is a great forum. If anybody has questions like that, DJ and I are both we have our terminology and our abbreviations, often because we're trying to get a tweet out in his, character limitations. We also sometimes may assume that you guys understand concepts. This is a great forum to ask questions like, what is drop? Because I know we use those terminologies. We don't explain them each time. So if you have any questions like that, this is a great place to ask them. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, look, he's an equal opportunist, this guy, Robert Cross. Appreciate that. Hello, DJ Ace in the Hole.
I like that.
Is it possible
that
was just a full compliment. There was no there's no question there. All right. The question is it possible that Tibbs could use iHeart to run some actions with the second unit in the playoffs? Yes, absolutely. It's been, even though he's been limited offensively a little bit and as a defender, the finishing has been a problem, probably always going to be, something that he's going to struggle with. But in terms of his passing and his ability to what's the word I've used it before, like kind of a release valve in the sense where if nothing is happening, he can just flash, catch, make a play. And now the Knicks have gotten so used to it. Those like we call them the blind pig actions, where it's basically on the weak side. He comes out, he catches the ball. There's going to be someone on the high side, usually a guard. Let's say it's DiVincenzo. He cuts right off that catch. It's almost simultaneous, and then you just hit him with the kind of a backdoor pass, and you're hoping to get a layup out of that. That's the stuff that he's got a really good instinct for, and he obviously has great talent as a passer. And something that I feel it can be absolutely utilized in the playoffs. Really wasn't used much last year. It sort of like became a thing as the season moved along, but definitely this year it's a real weapon. And I feel like the offense, I talked about it with Randall performing better with Hartenstein in the game. His ability to move in spots, not a true spacer, but a mover, is still a very good option for this team. Now, the interesting thing is, like, Tibbs on a couple of times has referred to Mitch as one of the starters. I did it last week, I believe. So I am curious, if we do get Mitch back, where the coach is going to go with that, because I think you can make a really good case that Hartenstein, assuming he is in reasonable health, should be starting for this team. I think the offense just runs better with him. Even though he's been really good defensively, he probably doesn't have the Mitchell Robinson ceiling as a defender, but I think you can make a good case that he is the better player right now. Obviously, we don't know what kind of Mitch we're going to get when he comes back. So, but to your point, I think his ability to make plays as a release valve and just a second side guy has been just a boon for this team. And I think something that they're really going to tap into, and hopefully they do in the playoffs. I think it's going to matter. Now, when teams sag off him and he's got to make a play with the ball as a scorer, that's where things get a little hairy. There was a play against Atlanta where there was, I believe it was, they just hard hedge. He slips out, he catches the ball, and it's basically him and I forget who the defender was. It was a wing. I don't know if it was Johnson, but anyway, it was someone he could have just taken a power dribble and just gone through, and he Euroed around.
Terrible.
Missed the floater. Yeah, just a play where you just want a little more aggression there, where I think maybe if he's healthier, you get that. But
for a 7-footer, it's amazing how often his finishes are like below the shoulder flings from his left side, where it's like, dude, you're 7'1", like go dunk the ball, or go up strong at the very least. And he's a decent free throw shooter. It's like, just go get fouled. Like don't. And then if he misses, because he's like kind of off balance a lot, now it's going back the other way, and he's trailing behind. It hurts. So his finishing needs to be better. He's limited. That's why the Knicks got him for the price they got him. Right. He's not a great scoring center by any stretch. It is interesting, like, and Robert talks about the second unit, and to your point that it sounds like Tibbs still at least theoretically envisions Mitch as a starter. I don't know how much it really matters, and I actually think regardless of who starts, getting Hartenstein out early so that he can be a part of the second unit or whatever unit's is playing without Brunson. I think that's probably wise, to your point, Robert. And I would advise that he do that. So like if Mitch starts, that's easier to do. But if Hartenstein starts, it's like getting him out at the 6-minute mark of the first quarter or whatever, putting Mitch in there if he's around. And then Hartenstein comes back in at the end of, beginning of the second quarter and you can always finish with Hartenstein if you need to, of course. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
He's back again. Robert, we thank you for the super chats. Super chats. Kevin, do me a favor and never compare Deuce to Kyle Lowry again. You know what? It's not crazy. And actually, I liked how you dealt with that. It was like, I'll look at Kyle Lowry as a Hall of Famer, but Miami Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I think there's a little bit there. Yeah.
That was clever. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you,
we
Robert.
Appreciate it, man. You got this one.
Lunas, Emirat.
Amarat is how John always says it.
Amarat. Okay, I'll go with John.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much, Lunas, for the super chat. We saw early post-trade Tibbs try each of Julius, JB, and OG with the second unit to add more O. Now with better idea of the team, who would you choose to go with the second unit between the three? In my opinion, JR with the added spacing works. Ben, do you want to take that one? It's a very interesting question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Lunas, and he did kind of toggle between different
Mhm.
options. And what's interesting is there's a third option that he didn't really try, I don't think, or at least I don't remember him doing this, which is to take Brunson out first
Mhm.
and then reinsert Brunson to start the second quarter. And so like the end of the first quarter or the last few minutes of the first quarter is like kind of the start. You know, you have Julius and OG out there without Brunson. It's funny because theoretically, I think you're right that the Julius Randle with added spacing, those lineups didn't look very good. I thought they always struggled. And then when he pivoted to the OG lineups, OG was playing really, really well. Maybe some of the best offensive basketball of his career. And his drives were really opening things up for that unit. And it did look pretty good. And I think, I do think that if you put Burks and Bogey out there, although I'm a little concerned with the defense when those two are out there, but if you do put both of them out there with OG, so at least you have OG always protecting defensively instead of Julius, right? Because I don't necessarily want a Burks, Bogey, and Julius defensive lineup. But if it's an OG-led unit, so let's say the lineup looks something like Burks, Bogey, Hart, OG, center.
Yeah.
I think there's good balance. I think there's good two-way balance there where you have maybe enough offensive creation and shooting, but you also you can protect Bogey on the defensive end a bit better. So I would lean with trying that OG unit. I would try that OG unit with the personnel I just mentioned.
Yeah, I'd like that as well. Now, the only thing I would, the Burks piece of things, I'm just wondering if we're talking about like your ultimate playoff lineup.
Well, he might not be in it.
Right. So is it like, could you go with a DiVincenzo, OG, Hart, Boyan, and a center?
Or is it Deuce?
Yeah. Or Deuce, right.
If both Deuce and Burks are probably exclusively non-Brunson minute guys in the playoffs, I would think.
Yeah.
I would think. So like it would probably be one or the other. If either of them plays, I mean, it could be that you end up in an 8-man rotation in the playoffs. That's possible too.
Yeah, that's true. I am interested in DiVincenzo. What player are we going to have here when we get our cavalry back? Because it's been such a revelation in terms of the volume of shooting. Is he gotten to the point where we always talk about like who's leading the second unit? Is that the sort of player now where you could feel confident? It's not just going to be an OG-led second unit. Like if DiVincenzo is still on the floor, you bring him back, or you figure out a way to get him on the floor in the non-Brunson minutes, and you have a little more semblance of support around him. I don't know. I feel like he's gotten to the point where this is a legitimate offensive weapon, not quite an offense unto himself, but he's gotten to the point where teams are really selling out on him. And I just feel like if you add him to the mix of the reinforcements, OG specifically, I don't know. That feels like a really good balance, and you could run some pick and roll with him now. You have Boyan, you could do some of that stuff too. OG cutting, OG spacing. There's just some nice diversity with that group. Even though you technically don't have a point guard on the floor, I feel like you have enough creativity, enough passing to make it work. Certainly enough shooting.
Yeah, I almost wish that. I mean, he is who he is, and he's been excellent and beyond my wildest imagination. So this is kind of a silly thing to say, but he's not an advantage creation shooter in the way that like a true movement shooter can be, right? It's like when you watch the Heat and like Duncan Robinson coming around the DHO, because he's so good at sprinting into a DHO and he can immediately pull into his shot and has like a higher release and kind of a jump shot. Because of all that,
yeah,
you almost have to send two, right? The way that Clay or Steph, you have to send two to the DHO, and that is an advantage. That's an advantage creator in and of itself, right? Because
right. If
and
then you can
pocket.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was going to say, and then if you obviously you can use him as a decoy in a way that really, I mean, they do it all the time with the back screen to Bam, and he goes in and he lobs it because you're thinking Duncan's just curling around. You got two guys set to sort of contain him, and then he sort of like stops it short, back screen, Bam goes in for a lob.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's stuff he's not quite
That's
at
not
that
quite
level.
Devo. Like his volume comes from the fact that he is so damn quick and catch and shoot in like various scenarios where like it doesn't matter where he catches it, he can
Right.
square and shoot in like a split second. But it's not movement shooting in like the Kyle Korver, Duncan Robinson, Doug McDermott mold of shooters. Buddy Hield also obviously like there's certain guys that are different in that way, and so like he's not quite creating advantages, but the spacing is super valuable, and the closeouts that he can attack because they're so nervous now about his 3-point shooting is very valuable. But and that's not to take any like I agree that it would be interesting to see him on the second unit. It's just like a thought of like that's how Miami generates so much of their like their non-Jimmy advantage creation is like through just like DHO movement shooting that forces two to the ball. You hit the pocket, now Bam is operating 3-on-2, that type of thing. Anyway, thanks, Lunas.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, that lineup really doesn't have that guy, so that would be the argument against it. Certainly fair. All right, Andrew, you can get the next one up.
Lunas is back. Thanks, Lunas. Healthy versus Boston. How would you line up matchups on D? Ooh,
oh boy,
that's a great question.
So Holiday, White, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis.
It's quite a good lineup.
You know what, this offense, I mean, I don't know. They can do some things.
Yeah, how about it?
It's a pretty quality bunch of good guys there. So assuming full health, right? So it's I think Julius, and they just have put him on Brown typically. So I think that's one. OG on Tatum. Brunson, I worry about him against Holiday in the post-up situation, but where do you see that one, Jalen, against their backcourt?
There's no great answers.
There's no great answer. Yeah, you can't hide them.
I think I'd put him on Derek White.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And if they want to, I mean, they're no good. There are no good answers. Drew has taken him into the post several times when he's matched up there, and it hasn't looked very good. And at least with Derek White, I don't think you're going to get it's not going to be like a pressure point in terms of I have to send two. No, he's going to struggle to navigate pick and rolls, but and that's the thing is because he still runs the most pick and rolls on the team. Do you want Jalen Brunson in all the actions, both from a defensive perspective and also just from a wear and tear perspective? Because I don't think Boston would pivot to running majority pick and rolls with Drew Holiday if he guarded Drew Holiday. It would be more of a post-up action.
Yeah.
There's no good answer. I would probably start with White, but I don't feel good about saying that.
I agree with you. And look, there's a limitation to where even if he's scoring against him, you're not going to spam Drew Holiday post-up. So you're probably going to be okay in that matchup. But it's just and obviously the Porzingis factor here. That's just he's unlocked their offense in a way that a lot of smart people said it was going to happen, and you just didn't until you see it. You're not really sure it's going to work out in that manner. But even when he wasn't shooting well at the beginning part of the year, he was such a threat in his post-up game, which I thought was sort of an anomaly last year in terms of the efficiency with Washington has completely transformed their offense in terms of you can't, you switch and then he's just burying guys in the, the mid post area. They're so hard to guard. So it's a problem either way.
And this is our centers versus Porzingis just has been bad. He gets so many good threes off against us. Seems like every single time we play him, both last year on Washington and now Boston. We don't guard elite pick and pop bigs very well. That's been a trend dating back now. I wonder, and Tibbs would never do this. And that's one of my issues. If I have an issue with Tibbs, it's that he would never even try it. But
the Julius 5.
Can you get away? Well, not even Julius. Even if you're playing your traditional center, and I think Precious would be a very interesting tool in this matchup.
Yeah.
That you can play at center and get more switchable and more mobile. Would you stick a center on Drew Holiday for a period of possessions? so that Julius can guard Porzingis and you can switch or you can be more mobile out there. Some teams have tried that already this season. That's interesting to me. Now, Drew Holiday is a really good shooter from the corner, and you're asking your centers to recover there. But, like, again, you're picking a poison at some point, and, like, Porzingis top of the break threes are also really dangerous. I don't know.
Holiday, by the way, is 60% from the corners this year.
So there you go.
So
maybe
it's not even he's like the best in the league right now.
So maybe not so viable, but maybe they can recover to the corners. But at least they don't have to deal with Porzingis, and you take them out of the actions.
I still think.
Would you consider Julius on Holiday so that you can stick a Brunson on, like, I don't think that really helps you. Like, DiVincenzo's got to guard someone. But if DiVincenzo's not in the game and you have, like, Josh Harden, I don't know.
I think you have to get, you need a scoring, but it's the DiVincenzo and Brunson factor where it's like two guys that you just can't, you got to stay away from the Porzingis because you want to.
I mean, Julius hasn't been bad on Jaylen Brown. It's been uneven, but not terrible.
He's just a great shot maker, and sometimes the shots go in. But yeah, he's not terrible. It's the Julius off ball trying to close out on a shooter in the corner.
But what the Celtics have done, is they've hunted Julius and viciously in screen actions because they're so comfortable going to any kind of ghost screen, 3 flat type of actions, 2 high, 3 flats. Yeah, like they're just going to run. They're going to, whoever they want to attack, they're going to bring him into the action. And Julius is not good at navigating those situations at all. And Jaylen Brown's is going to become your screener over and over again.
Now listen, here's the positive though. I mean, you have OG healthy. I think that he can do a reasonable job against Tatum. Is there a world where you get like, and we're way ahead of ourselves here, obviously, but this is potentially the second round matchup. So it's
or first, hate to say it. I hate to say it, but it's very possibly first. Also,
I also looked at the standings today, and you're not wrong. Now maybe there's a situation where you have enough defensively to make it work. Now I think the Knicks would pose some challenges to Boston on in terms of guarding the Knicks. I think I still think Julius. I like the matchup against Jaylen Brown in general. If he's not trying to bully ball the entire game, I feel like that you can do some things in that area. It's. I think
they're going to cross match that one too, right? And they showed it in the last game. They'll put Porzingis on Randall. And they will put Tatum on Hartenstein and say, I dare you to score. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of answers. They just have a lot of answers.
Listen, we're talking about a team that's
they're one of the best teams ever right now.
Ever. It's not even not hyperbole. They're great.
It's tough. I wonder if at some point in that theoretical series, if you get to a point where it's like maybe we gotta go with Randall, OG, Precious, Hart, Brunson, and be as switchable and wingy and rangy as we possibly can be with Jalen Brunson, obviously, who has to be in the mix. Because that's the thing. And where the Knicks become very interesting is they now, if they are fully healthy at any point, they have a lot of optionality. Now, does the coach tap into it, right? Because between Precious, OG, Randall, you have 3 really big big power forward, whatever they are. I mean, OG doesn't really have position. Precious doesn't even have position. I don't know what he is. But can guard like a big wing in some ways. And you can do that and have enough size to sort of be still protecting the rim. And especially because your centers aren't protecting the rim against the Celtics. They can't. There's no one they can guard that allows them to protect the rim. So at some point, you just have to be better at the point of attack,
right?
But will Tibbs ever pivot there? Will he ever even consider such a thing? I worry about that.
Yeah, I do too. Fargo Tufo, can you explain Blind Pig in more detail? Benjy, you want me to take that one? You want to?
Blind Pig? Yeah. Sure.
You're a fan.
Love a blind pig. Can't eat them, but I love them. That's a kosher joke. So Blind Pig, if you let's try to imagine the following scenario. Dante DiVincenzo has the ball on one wing, and Jalen Brunson's on the other wing, right? So, or let's switch it. Jalen Brunson has the ball on one wing. Dante DiVincenzo's on the other wing. More common scenario. If Jalen Brunson tosses the ball, if Isaiah Hartenstein, who maybe was in the paint before, flashes to the high post, and Jalen Brunson tosses the ball to Isaiah Hartenstein in that high post foul line area, Blind Pig means that it's called Blind Pig because the defender who's guarding DiVincenzo is blind to the cut that's about to happen because he's looking at the ball. As Brunson, he's in gap help on Brunson. The pass goes to Hartenstein. He's watching the ball, and as that happens, DiVincenzo is going to cut directly to the rim off of Hartenstein as the defender's looking the other way to open up a potential backdoor situation. Fargo, I hope that visual was helpful. I don't know, DJ, if you had anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, just the history is interesting too. It's right out of the triangle offense. It was a Tex winner, Phil Jackson situation here. You see, if you watch any of the Bulls or Lakers, any of the Phil Jackson teams, it's run dozens of times. You don't always get the back door open, so it's like you could pivot right out of that and go right into a pick and roll. Like you could reverse the ball. There's a lot of things you can do outside of it, but when it works, you're trying to get a layup out of it. And if you're thinking about now DiVincenzo, or if it's the Bulls teams from the 90s, it's Jordan on the opposite side. And if you think about, you're the defender and your job is like, you don't let Michael catch the ball, or you're trying you're in deny, you're playing high on his side, and he cuts back door. You're not seeing that ball has already been reversed onto your side. And that's where the whole Blind Pig sort of theory comes into play. And it's something the Knicks have really tapped into over the past several weeks. Usually with Hartenstein, Sims a little bit. He'll catch the ball in the similar spot. He doesn't have the instincts to sort of make that pass with the same timing that Hartenstein does. But you'll see, I've posted, if you check my Twitter, search Blind Pig, that I have 3 or 4 clips that I posted on that specific action. But it's a triangle based. If you look at the Knicks in the Derek Fisher years, they would run those actions every now and again. It's just a really nice way to get a layup, which is obviously the best shot in basketball. It's something you're trying to get all the time, and it's a good option to have. You don't see it a ton in the NBA. I mean, but once you see it and you can sort of envision it, see it a couple of times, you start picking it out more as you're just watching a game. You'll see the Knicks run it plenty. But it is fun to go back and watch some of the 90s Bulls games on YouTube and just see how many times they'll go to it. It's pretty stunning how often that is part of the triangle. It's like option 2 usually, but it's an option that is very commonly run during those Phil Jackson Bulls and Lakers teams. It's a fun play. Big fan. I know Benjy's been a big fan of it. And the fact that Hartenstein is so good at it, it gives the Knicks a nice sort of option to go to.
Fargo, I just retweeted something that I put out a long time ago of RJ getting a layup off a Blind Pig action. So you can go check my feed as well. I just retweeted it, so it'll be top of my whatever timeline. And the nice thing about Blind Pig is, it's sort of a play, quote unquote, but it's really more of like a concept that can be part of any play, right? It's like when things break down, it's like I can throw to the high post and the opposite wing is going to cut, and you can just create something off of it. But great question, Fargo. Thank you for allowing us to expound on a favorite. Fargo, who's now very into Blind Pig, says, when you run Blind Pig, you're shaking and baking. Well, you might be. You might be.
So if we get a Shake Milton Blind Pig cut,
that
would be the shaking and bacon. Yes, and that would be the reality of the thing. And we had a was it Dwayne Bacon?
God!
Is that a name?
Did
we have a Dwayne? Yes.
I did when they signed him, I did like a 15-part thread on Dwayne Bacon.
No, you didn't.
God save my soul. I did. I was young and hungry back then, DJ. I was young and hungry, and
How many retweets?
You can search my Twitter. It's in there.
How many
Dwayne
likes?
Bacon
I'm going to retweet that. I'm going to bring that
I
back.
liked about Dwayne Bacon. I think it was something. Sad story. So
All
I've
right.
learned from that, and I did not put out a thread on Shake Milton.
Listen, my Jalen Martin thread is gone for time.
I did when they when they signed, what was Samanich from the Spurs? What was that guy's name?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I did a big thread on him.
yeah.
Just
No Shake Milton threads on the horizon.
My young days.
We've learned. We've gotten more efficient, a little more conservative on our threads. Jessica
love hearing Trafe humor on a B-ball pod. # blind pig. Yeah. The blind pig play is definitely Trafe, but it's still good for the Knicks. Still not good for the Jews, good for the Knicks. Go ahead, buddy.
No, it's me. Oh, go. Yeah, Ben. Yes.
Ben, you seem very nonplussed about Shake. I loved him in Philly. I thought he made tough shots. Good off ball. What do you not like about Shake? Fair question. We should address it. Yes, he made tough shots, but that's because he takes a lot of tough shots, which I think maybe is the primary issue. Is he doesn't. It's like one of these players who is not good enough at creation to be a creator, but doesn't do the other stuff to play off of creators well enough. And that's like a bad spot to be in as an NBA player, right? So like he's like theoretically like a 6-man type creator, not really a good enough playmaker, doesn't make catch and shoot threes well enough, doesn't defend well enough to kind of be a complementary piece. So like just the archetype doesn't really work for this team unless they really needed it. For example, if they had more injuries and or if Alec Burks continues to suck.
Yeah.
What do you think, DJ?
I mean, I think you nailed it. I referred to him as a bucket in like a term of endearment, but also, couched in the sort of shooting diet that he has, which is very like early 2000s, a lot of mid-range, a lot of, it's like the name is very apt in terms of the shaking and bacon type stuff. He is a really good ball handler to create space in tight windows, but not a guy that's going to generate a lot of drives and get rim attempts. So he's not pressuring the rim. So you don't get the paint touches that, you would like for a guy that is not going to be, as you mentioned, a really high level catch and shoot shooter. So what is the ceiling on a guy like that? Well, it's probably, maybe if your offense is sort of bogged down and he can generate some semi-efficient looks for himself in areas of the floor that, he's pretty good at, he's going to shoot maybe 43, 44% in that like intermediate mid-range area. But that is if that's beneficial to your team, you probably have other issues going on right now.
Although if Alec Burks is going to take all those shots, it might as well be Shake Milton.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, it's
with 7 on the left and 7 seconds left in the quarter.
Yeah, that was
on the shot clock down.
I couldn't. And then DiVincenzo right after that with like the most bizarre foul. Like it was a sequence of like, all right, this team is really just they don't got it.
But yeah, that's what I mean. Is like these two guys. I really do believe there's like a bit of a Detroit hangover, where like, I mean, Alec Burks was always a little goofy, but didn't make this many mental mistakes. And Bogey like didn't remember this from Utah, where like he was making a lot of errors. He was pretty, he's a low turnover player. He's always been a smart player. It's like kind of surprising, and I think there's a bit of a shock to the system when you go from a place that literally had 0 stakes for the entire season. They started the season, well, they were 2-2, and then they were like 2-16. And like, there's habits that develop when that's the case. Like Alec Burks had the greenest of lights, and we need to turn it yellow. But so far we haven't done it.
I still confident in Bojan and as a good player for this team, fully realized. Now that's, again, we talked about at the start, where it's like you got him in part to get you through these games where you don't have your stars. So that's a problem. And I mean, the front office does need to sort of reckon with that he just hasn't been to this point good enough to help you win some more ball games. But I think the other side of the coin is like when they are healthy and he's playing 20 minutes a night and he's more insulated defensively, I think you could get a really quality player who is, to God bless them. It's like they have a couple of guys like this, DiVincenzo as well. He can miss 5 in a row, and the next one, if it's coming to him, it's going up. So you want guys like that.
Sure.
I mean, the Knicks have 2 of them, and DiVincenzo, it's like some of the shot attempts that he'll miss 4 in a row in like a really short range of time. Like
he's taking like 11 in the first quarter. He's just taking 11 threes, like casually.
Zero hesitation. No. And all the credit to him. And I'm sure it's like, I don't know if it's with you, I said it, but it's like, it must be liberating to play this way where there is just no concern about, all right, if I take this extra shot, it's like, it's going to look bad. My teammates are going to think this of me. My coach is going to pull me. Like he is completely liberated to do whatever he wants as a shooter. And I'm sure
it's also the knowledge that you're not getting a better shot.
Well, I mean, he probably knows that, right? Yeah.
In the general game, Dante DiVincenzo understands that I could shoot this, but I could also just give the ball back to Jalen or Julius, and they'll probably create something good, right? Like that's always, and as a shooter, it's in the back of your mind, right? You're trying to maximize each and every possession. It's like, what's the best chance for us to get a good shot here? Like the less quality the 3 that you're about to take, the more that kind of creeps up in the back of your mind. Like, maybe I should just pitch this back to Jalen, even if there's 5-6 seconds on the clock. Chances are he's going to create something, right? And it's like, that's gone. Because if I pitch it back to Josh Hart, it's not going to get any better. I promise you. If I pitch it to the open Precious Achiuwa, the shot quality is not going to get any better than 3 that I am currently thinking about taking. And these decisions are all made in a split second, but it's absolutely part of the calculus when you play a game.
So
anyone who's played the game.
Well, let me ask you that because you talked about this with John on the Monday pod when you had that year where you had all those injuries. You talked about how you get guys going down left and right. Did you have to retrain your brain to sort of like take shots and maybe when you had everyone healthy, you're past that ball's getting swung or something else is happening? Like how did you?
Yeah,
adjust?
I mean that year, I was the leading scorer, so like I never really felt that. I mean, just in terms of like maybe spreading the ball around a bit more to guys who deserved it. Like there was that, but like I was a pretty green light kind of player. I will tell you though, like first and second year when we weren't very good. Our second year we were okay, and we had guys who demanded the ball and were seniors, and like it's just you're playing a very different game when you know that there are guys that expect to have the ball on possessions. And that will create something good, and it just changes the calculus. Now, the best players and shooters, regardless of the role, will maintain their efficiency, and I think you've seen that with Dante. Like, what's been impressive is that despite the fact that he's now taking these very difficult threes, last game notwithstanding, like he's sort of maintained his efficiency. It's pretty miraculous. Not quite, but like close enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to defer more to your better players, but understand your role and shot. And I know Fred Katz wrote an article like where Dante is very clear in his own mind, and he understands fully well where his strengths are, and like changed his shot diet specifically because he understands where his strengths are in terms of like catch and shoot, corners. He gets it. Like he just gets it. And
no mid range,
no mid range. Cut out the off-the-dribble stuff unless you really need to. Yeah.
He had a shot against Atlanta where he kind of just found the ball in the middle paint and he sort of like turned and shot. It was sort of like outside the restricted area, but like a short mid range, and it just looked really uncomfortable for him to take that shot. Barely got off the ground, like almost like a set shot. So you could, but it's just not. He's wired his brain to know what a good look is for him.
Yeah,
and
he's
for
a
the
freaking
league
winner,
as a whole.
He's just a winner. He gets it. And it's like that's what winners understand is like, I can change what I'm doing based upon my personnel and like just to help us win. Whatever the team needs, right? That's really what it is. It's like whatever the team needs me to do, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be happy and fine with it and contribute in all the different ways that I can contribute. And like for Dante, that's changed now and he has responded better than most would. All right, thanks. What do we got? Any more, Andrew? Take this one, Deej.
Lunas again. Thank you so much. Best and worst first round matchups, realistic ones.
Take it.
Okay, so let's. I got to pull up the standings. I want to make sure I get this close to the reality here. So we're currently in the 4-5. I will just say right off the bat, I hate the Orlando matchup for us. I don't know if that is me projecting a little bit in terms of like what Orlando could be fully realized, but I just feel like there's a lot of size, and I think Suggs makes things really tough for can make things tough for Jalen. Well, I think the worst matchup situation would be like if you get the Sixers and Embiid is healthy. I think I just don't. And
Are we
I don't know
excluding Boston?
Okay, so you think that the 8 spot? I mean, it's
definitely
a game and a
realistic.
half?
You can't argue it's not realistic at this point. It is realistic. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
I would
so
really hope it's not going to happen, but it is realistic.
That's the worst one.
Yeah.
100%. Let's do the best one. So I would love to see Cleveland again. I just think that they have there's just things that Cleveland can't do against them that I don't think is changing before the playoffs. Now, can I say I'd rather have Cleveland than Orlando? Is that is that an insane thought? But
I don't think
part of me is like, it's a matchup game, right? And I just feel like Orlando, with their length and size and the Isaac factor, against Randall, there's a world where they can smother the Knicks in a 7-game series or however long a series goes and just makes things hellacious for them. And I know Cleveland did a admirable job defensively against the Knicks last year. The Knicks just were better defensively, but that might be if you're like, all right, the Knicks would beat Orlando because Tibbs would figure out a way to slow them down enough to where the Knicks would still come out on top. But I don't love that matchup. But I've rambled a bit. So what do you think about beyond Boston, which we both agree is the worst one?
I'm going to rank them.
Okay.
Boston's the worst one. While I agree with what you said about, well, let's go difficulty order. I think the Bucks are the second worst one. Not to say that there aren't things the Knicks could absolutely expose against the Bucks. I just think that the Bucks are by far the second best team. So
that's fair. Now Jalen might average 35 in the series.
He might, yeah. And we can pick on their wings defensively and whatever.
But I think you're right.
I think the talent is the talent. I would say the third worst matchup is probably the healthy Sixers. I don't know what the chances are that there is such a team, but a theoretical healthy Sixers team. Although again, and this is what I mean, the Knicks, I'm not sure Boston will be a competitive series. I think it's possible, but I would probably bet on a 5 or 6 game series. Not that a 6 game series isn't competitive, but I would say that the Bucks and Sixers could very well go 7. And I think the Knicks could definitely beat the Sixers. I would have my doubts in a Milwaukee series. I think the Knicks could beat the Sixers.
Well, I would
still have the Knicks.
If the Embiid is healthy, I still think you can argue the Knicks are the better team.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
If both teams are fully healthy, and you have to, who knows? You have 2 stars coming back off significant injuries. How are they going to be? But you can make the case that the Knicks have a slight edge on paper.
Yep. This may be crazy. People will call me crazy, but if Hallie is fully healthy, I would put the Pacers next.
I knew you were going to pick the Pacers
because
they are a tough match. They just
they expose some things that we don't do well on the defensive end. And their pace. I think it's a bad matchup for the Knicks. I think they'd probably win the series, the Knicks, but they would be next.
No, it's a tough matchup.
Then I will put the Heat, because they just beat us. Now both teams are different. But the Heat are the Heat. The coaching discrepancy worries me. The Heat are willing to go to so many different things to muck things up. Will we respond quick enough, counter quick enough? That worries me. Jimmy, obviously being Jimmy in the playoffs. The movement shooting. They're the Heat. I don't have to say much more than that. Then I put the Cavs. And then I'd put the Magic. And now I actually understand what you're saying about the Magic, because they've proven to be a difficult matchup for the Knicks. They grind it out in a way like the Knicks lose the advantages they generally have, which is like play harder, rebound, low turn. Like the Magic do all that. Like they do all that. They're almost mirror the Knicks in that sense, and they can throw a lot of good defenders on Brunson and guard their 2-man actions really well. I just don't believe the Magic are at a point yet in their development where they're going to put up a great playoff series. Like it kind of comes down to that for me, and maybe the Pacers. There's an argument for that too for them, but which kind of goes against what I said. But I don't know. I don't believe in that team yet as like a serious playoff opponent. I actually think the Knicks, if fully healthy, would probably win that series in 5. But I think you can go a lot of different ways with this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think of all the teams, I mean, the Bucks are the most interesting one to sort of theorize against the Knicks because they terrify me because the Giannis start there. He's just he's a top 5 player still, and he's an incredibly hard matchup for anyone, Knicks included. Brooke, he does a little bit of the Porzingis stuff where it's
you
a
have
little
the stretch 5. Any team that has a stretch 5 worries me against the Knicks, which is why the Pacers also worry me.
Yeah, and then I don't love the Knicks guarding Lillard in a way where I don't love OG on him. I don't love OG against smaller guards in general. So you're looking at a lot of Hart, a lot of DiVincenzo. Listen, I have been vocal about how they handle the coaching change, but I cannot deny that they are playing much better, especially defensively. They're cleaning up a lot of the things that they struggled with early part of the year.
Yep.
And they're going to have potentially, and Jalen can have a great series and change that, but they might have the 2 best players in any series they play, and might have the 2 best players against the Knicks. They have the best player. They might have the second best player. I mean, that's how good Dame is still at this level, at this age. So really tough matchup. So yeah, I would have them second, and you nailed the Pacer stuff. I mean, it's they scare me.
The kind of my general thought process when the Knicks, and this applies to regular season matchups too, the more guys the Knicks can help off of, and this, it sounds like an obvious statement for any defense, but I think it's particularly true for the Knicks. If their centers and even a wing can help off of anyone and be in the paint, they can suffocate you, the Knicks. The size, the rim protection, like a fully healthy version of the Knicks, if you offer them places to help, will destroy you. So like that was the Cavs series, where not only can you help off both bigs, you can help off of a Okoro. If you give the Knicks room to do that, you don't have a chance to score a lot of points. The teams that scare me are the ones where your center specifically, and then there's nowhere else to really hide. There's nowhere else to play to really help off of. Like Indiana, definitely this applies. The Bucks, but like you get to like the Sixers, where like, all right, can I help off of Nick Batum a little bit? Like every other team, and Orlando is for sure, because you can help off almost all their shooters, right? Like that, and I just don't.
Literally all of them except maybe Suggs. He's gotten to the point where
I don't think Orlando's going to score enough points to win. Like I just don't believe that they'll give the Knicks hell too, but they're not going to score enough points. Like there's too many places to help off of, even though they do have some stretch bigs, right? Like Carter can stretch a little bit. Still, just there are too many places to hide. So like, that's kind of the way I look at it, big picture, in terms of the matchups, because, and it's both a personnel thing and a coaching thing, because like they do like to play with their centers, but they also won't pivot off of their centers. That's the coaching aspect. So it's like you can expose that as an opponent if you have the right personnel to do it. So it's that's not my big picture thought about the matchups. But they're all complicated. They're all going to be difficult. I know the West is the true gauntlet right now, but the East is no picnic. It's going to be fun.
Can I ask you guys, because it's been a very good show tonight, do you have time for one more question? It's from a non-super chat comment, but it's from a regular contributor. It's spicy, and because Mac isn't here, he felt safe asking it.
You know what? Sure, but like, make it a super chat next time.
Yes. Sorry, Andrew P.
Just kidding, Andrew.
We
love answering all questions. Just kidding. Andrew P.S. Tibbs is not a championship level coach. Hello. The Knicks' next step. The next step must involve a new coach in addition to another star. Agree or disagree?
You can now see why I knew that because you guys are here, he felt safe asking this.
So Andrew P, if I remember correctly, was the guy that wanted Julius traded, right?
Uh-oh.
Or
Yes.
Are we calling out
Yes.
Andrew P? Yes.
I mean, I'm just
call him out. Especially because it's not a super chat. You can call him out.
it's very
Go at him.
well. Listen, I mean, you are Tibbs Jr., so I feel like you should at least take the first stab at this. As the ultimate.
I would say, man, he's asking it so simply that I'm trying to add nuance, but he's asking an agree or disagree. Okay, on Tibbs. If it is the case that he coaches in the playoffs the way he's coached his career, which I think is very likely, I think unless he has super, super elite talent, like Golden State dynasty talent, in which case I don't really care who the coach is, you're probably going to win. I think he will struggle to win a championship because I don't think he has proven at the highest levels to make the type of adjustments necessary and to pivot quickly enough, which is a big part of playoff series. It's a big part of playoff series. I am not counting him out. I think people can learn and adjust. I think he has shown some learnings and adjustments. I think he was great in the first round, and I think Spo outcoached him in the second round. I think until he proves otherwise, that's not to say that he's ever had like a real championship roster that should have won and didn't. The one year he maybe did, the guy got hurt that he needed to win it. But like I do have my reservations and my worries about this coach winning a championship with non-top elite talent. I
mean, look, he's not a championship level coach yet. It's completely fair. Now, I will just say then you're right to bring in some nuance here because
Uh-oh. Did DJ freeze, Andrew, or is that just me?
I think he froze, so we'll give him a second.
All right. While he's maybe rejoining us, the second step of the question, which
sorry,
is...
am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Finish up, DJ. Good.
Okay. Sorry. What? I don't think there has been... he's had really good teams. I don't think he's had a team yet where you're going in and saying this team has as good a chance as anyone to come out of the conference, let alone win the championship. So I think there is still a question mark whether he is a championship level coach, because I can probably go down like Doc Rivers won a championship. Now you can say to your point that his talent was so good that he had such an advantage over most teams that he should have won that year with Boston. And it's fair. Now Tibbs might have that. He might have that with the Knicks over the next couple of years where the talent is at that level. I do not think, and I'm just projecting here, that he needs to be the best team in the NBA on paper. I think he can have like the second or third best and then just things break right and they can win a championship. Now, the adjustment stuff, completely fair. The Cleveland series, which you give him a ton of credit for, rightfully so, was like an adjustment going into the series, and he never had to adjust because Cleveland never adjusted to him. So it was, now there was probably minor stuff, but like the big sort of strategy and how they defended Cleveland, it was like the strategy, and the Cleveland never was able to push the any sort of alteration from that. And
well, I would say he pivoted to guarding Garland with Brunson.
Yeah,
in mid-series, right, which I thought was really smart, even counterintuitively. But I thought it was really smart. So, in fairness, not that that's like a world-changing adjustment, but it's an adjustment.
Yeah, 100%. And Brunson guarding the wings was probably the biggest, like, and he guarded Strus a ton in the Miami series, and I just felt like it was a disaster. And that, yeah, I would agree that change was significant enough to make a material difference. But he's got questions to answer as a playoff coach. 100%. He grinds teams to the point where they are playing at such an effort level in the regular season. And this is become a cliche to talk about, but like, what is their ceiling as teams all like sort of level up in the effort department? Do the Knicks have that extra sort of like area to go to, or if they maxed out in the regular season. That's it. That part to me is fair. But I think that, you give this guy championship level talent. I'm not going to say he can't win a title. Like, I don't think he's had that yet. So I think it's an open question.
Yep, I agree. And then to answer the second part of this was, do they need another star? Must involve a new coach in addition to another star. So I would say no. I don't think it must involve either of those things. If you asked me, like, must is too strong. If you asked me if I think that Tibbs will ever coach this team to a championship, yes or no, I'd probably say no. But that's not to say that he can't. And then if you ask me, like, is it more likely that the Knicks win a championship with another star or without one? I'd say with. But that doesn't mean that they can't win without another quote-unquote star. I think you have the bones here of a team. If you add another OG level player, so in theory, Bridges. Like, if you made this team into the best role players around Jalen Brunson that you can find, I don't think it's crazy to think they could be a championship level team. Things have to break right.
Yeah.
Which is true for any championship team, but hell, Miami made the finals last year. Like, it's possible. And I think what you saw in January, that was not a fluke. That was a team operating as one of the true elites in the league for a sustained period. And I think it proved that it is possible without another real star. If you built it right, from here on out. What do you think, Deej?
I completely agree. I think this team has enough in the building today, fully healthy. Listen, Boston makes things more complicated, because when I was talking about championship in January, like, I didn't think Boston had another level or two to go to. They have gone to that second level. So that makes it more complicated, but I think there's enough here.
All it takes to make that series really a toss-up is a Porzingis injury. And, like, how unlikely is that? I don't wish it upon him, but like, it's, I mean, that's what I mean is, like, we talk about these championship windows as absolutes, or like you need X or you need Y. And the reality is there are a gazillion different permutations in any season of what can happen. And there's some percentage chance that a lot of teams make the championship. And it's just a matter of things breaking right, matchups working out, and then you playing great and finding another level, which I think is all feasible, regardless of whether you get another star and add it to this team or not. That's kind of where I end up. But thank you for the question, Andrew.
Yes, thank you.
It. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. I know there was a really exciting amount of people, especially on the Twitter side, watching. So we thank you all for joining us, for asking your questions. We hope that you guys keep coming, and we love to do this. We love to talk in the technicalities and really get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on in a game. I love the questions that are kind of like, what is blind pig? I think that's a great use of our time in terms of being able to explain more long form what we say in short form in our tweets and on our accounts. I think that's really cool. So next time we do this, I hope you guys will come with more of those questions. Plus, you can always reach out to us, either our accounts, DM us, or tweet at us, and I'm sure we'll be able to answer. But thank you all for tuning in. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed it, because that helps. That really helps, and it'll make us come on even more. And if you're listening on the KFS podcast feed later, please leave a 5-star rating and review. Any parting words? Detail junkie.
No, I'm just a big couple of games coming up. Big three, Orlando and Philly back-to-back. So they got to get two of these.
Lucked out a little bit that you have these 3 days off for Brunson,
yes,
hopefully. And I thought it was really smart to give him Atlanta, obviously. And hopefully that contusion is in a place where he's ready to go.
Yes, I agree. We need him back. Cavalry, I feel like, give him a couple more weeks. We start getting guys back. I think there's some reason for optimism, despite me starting this on the crankier side. I feel good about things that now we've talked things through and feel much better. So always a pleasure doing this with you, sir.
All right, everybody. We'll speak to you guys soon. Later.
Later.